Do you yearn for travel that involves outdoor adventure and learning? I do. I also have a passion for all things farming and agriculture. I've traveled to exotic jungles to learn about growing chocolate. I even once owned my own organic vegetable and sunflower farm. And now I'm planning my journey back to agriculture. Agritourism, defined as travel that involves some type of agricultural experience. Agritourism is all about entertaining. But the marketing strategist in me knows that at its core, agritourism is really about educating, and education affects change. My future farm needs to deliver a profound experience to all of its visitors. It needs to educate people about food, health, and climate. Join me to learn from experienced agritourism farmers and entrepreneurs and help me build my future farm strategy. And who knows, maybe one day soon you'll find yourself in a tropical jungle cutting open cacao pods with a machete, or savoring an outdoor plant-to-plate community dinner with 100 guests at a farm in Illinois. So let's tap into the agritourist in you. Today, I am so excited for you to hear from my very dear friend and fellow entrepreneur, Waldo Cabrera. Waldo is an Emmy-winning and extremely talented video producer. I have known Waldo for many years, and we have collaborated on many work projects. I have conducted many interviews for a TV show he used to produce, and we have had many thrilling times like riding the Cyclone in Coney Island after a video shoot at the opening of a local community center. Waldo knew I had a passion for all things agriculture, as he covered many of our farm events and innovations on his TV episodes. And he also knew that I happened to love chocolate and traveled to Central America a few times to learn about the agriculture behind chocolate. Well, one day, to my surprise, Waldo just happened to mention that his family owns a 100-year-old organic cacao farm in the Dominican Republic. Why he withheld that fact from me, I will never know, and we joke about it to this day. But once I found out and we chatted about it, we turned it into a family media adventure to the Dominican Republic. And what an amazing adventure it was to immerse in the culture of the Dominican Republic and be part of a working organic cacao farm, and to be able to experience this with close friends and family. This is Jen Ross, your Agritourist podcast host. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Waldo Cabrera. Okay, Waldo, welcome to the Agritourist podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
So before we start talking about one of the topics I want to talk about, which is our amazing trip to the Dominican Republic many moons ago, let's talk about how we met, because we met a while ago. And so why don't you tell how we met?
Well, I was trying to establish a local news channel on Long Island, and I called it My Long Island TV. And my purpose was to highlight the people and events that make Long Island great. And I believe I was at the Solar Cafe when I first heard about you.
Okay.
Because you were doing volleyball you were playing volleyball with a bunch of executives at the Solar Cafe in Brentwood. So my friend pointed you out to me, but I didn't talk to you that day. And then I volunteered to be sort of like a mentor at Sachem North High School.
Sachem North, yes.
Right. A business mentor. And as an entrepreneur, I wanted to get involved in these things since I had a fantastic career as the art director for the team that brought Pokemon to the United States. And that's when I saw you in person. I already understood more or less what you were doing. And I was fascinated by your active entrepreneur project. And so I immediately approached you, and I discussed the possibility of maybe doing a story about you. And then from then on, I think we went over we did a walk and talk in Stony Brook over by the mill that's no longer there.
Well, yeah, Avalon Park.
right?
Yeah,
Is the lake is not there?
The bridge is gone.
Okay.
From the last storm. Yeah, it was pretty devastating.
There was some torrential storm that overwhelmed it.
Yes, and literally the bridge is gone. But the park the hiking trails that we hiked in are still there, very much so. And they actually have a farm there now too. Yes, we did a hike and you recorded it.
Yeah, but I was really fascinated by the fact that you were doing all these networking events, but it was active. And that you were going out there and doing everything that people do or at a bar over drinks and, and getting themselves, it has to be completely unhealthy, but it to me, I just really enjoy the idea of walking and talking and getting to know another business person in a different way. And as you're doing these activities and you're out there sweating and exerting energy, I just think that you have a different type of connection. So I was fascinated by it. And then I believe I asked you if I could follow you everywhere else. And you were like, oh, this guy's creepy.
Well, then we definitely, it evolved into interviewing many interesting entrepreneurs all over Long Island. And then you landed a show.
Yeah.
With Verizon Fios.
Yeah.
And do you want to just quickly talk about what that show is about?
Well, Verizon was in town competing against the local powerhouse, News 12, Cablevision. They're owned by Altice now, but they owned cable on Long Island. 3 million people on Long Island only had one cable outlet. So Verizon came in to compete. And as they went around, they realized that people were not switching over to Verizon because Verizon didn't have News 12. And News 12, for anyone who lives on Long Island, it's like Long Islanders don't live in New York. They don't live in New York City. They live on Long Island. And if you don't give them Long Island news, they don't want to hear it. And News 12 provides that traffic, weather, and local news that just Long Islanders don't care about Brooklyn. They don't care about what's happening on the Cross Bronx. So when Verizon tried to switch, they couldn't. So they said, we need an answer to News 12. And I happened to be friendly with the people that were trying to make those decisions. They knew about me. I had them on my email database. So every week that I would do a story, sort of, a feature story of yours, I would blast it out. And they said to me, that stuff that you're doing on the internet, would like you to do it on TV. So they hired me to do 3 original half-hour news magazines every week, 52 weeks a year, which I believe adds up to 156 original episodes a year. And, it was fast and furious. And you were a big part of it because somehow you know everybody on Long Island.
I used to, at least.
So at first we just took some of the active entrepreneur stuff that we did on our own, and because I always shot it and a broadcast quality. All I had to do was just run it on TV, and they loved it. And they even asked me to include you more, and I did.
Except they didn't like my hair.
Well, your hair has a control problem. It has a mind of its own.
Depending on the weather.
Yes. Well, they asked me, what was it, to see if you could just bring it down somehow. I think it was taking up the entire screen.
That's funny.
But you're well spoken. You're easy on the eyes, and you're an intelligent woman. So they really liked what you were doing, and I can't remember. We must have done, I don't know, dozens of stories.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Honestly, we had a lot of fun, and we connected with some amazing people. And it was funny because the other day, I was at the Engerman Theater in Northport, and seeing a play with my mom and sister, and my sister's friend's son was the lead actor in the play, and they mentioned, oh, someone's going to be interviewing us at intermission or after the play. And I'm like, oh, I know who that someone must be, because the Angerman Theater was one of a very early a theater that we brought into the network. And then we started doing interviews there every time. And I got to see all of their plays and their Broadway shows and everything they were doing, which I love that theater. So you were the one. I texted you. I'm like, are you interviewing today? And you're like, yes,
I am. In between shows.
So, you were interviewing her son. So she was funny. She's like, what is he going to ask him? I'm like, don't worry. Waldo is amazing with people. So
no, and that started off a great series, because aside from people that are raising money to battle cancer, or just all the great nonprofits, we also have a huge entertainment concert scene, theater scene on Long Island, because we are 3 million people. We have more people on Long Island than a good portion of the states in the United States. So and technically, for those that don't live on Long Island, we could be our own state, our own government, and you could live an entire life on Long Island and not leave the island. It's so theater was important to me, and I thank you for making that connection, because it was you that opened that door.
Well, I want to talk, before we talk about chocolate and the Dominican Republic, I do want to highlight a few things about your career. 2 things. Well, first, you have won several Emmys. So I want to just talk about that a little bit, because we need to talk about that more. When I talk about Waldo, I'm always like, well, he's an Emmy award winning, video person. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the Emmys feel good.
They feel good.
I have 2 of them. I have 2 of them. And I've been nominated 12 times. So 10 times I walked away without a prize. But you know that what they say, it's an honor to be selected or to be nominated. So the first Emmy that I won was for my interview with Norman. No, that was my first nomination. I interviewed famous producer Norman Lear, who came up with he was the creator of All in the Family, Maude, and essentially some of the best television of the 70s and 80s. So that was the first nomination that I got, but the first win that I got was for my interview with the director Barry Sonnenfeld, the director of all the Addams Family movies and all the Men in Black movies, and just recently on Apple TV, he directed Schmidigadoon or something like that. It's funny. It's a funny series, but it's on Apple TV. So that was my interview with him, and something about our conversation really connected. He's from the Bronx, so he went to Bronx Community College, which used to be NYU. He grew up in the Heights, and my family's in the Heights. So I just had a real special connection with him when we were talking. And he was, he started with the Coen brothers, Joel and Ethan Coen, doing Blood Simple, and parts of Blood Simple. If you see the movie, it really takes place, like I think in Arizona or in Texas, but there were scenes that they didn't like. They had to reshoot, and they were shot out here on Long Island on the potato fields in East Hampton, because that's where they lived. Okay. So they lived out there. They had to recreate some of the scenes, in particular when somebody's being buried alive so they had to just recreate that on Long Island. I found that fascinating, but my connection with him was special. So that translated. And the second one was just after we were coming out of COVID. I was curious what these oh my God. The dance groups, when you're a cultural dance group, your job is to share your culture with the public. But you're in the middle of COVID, there's no public to share your culture with. So I wrote up a grant for New York State Council on the Arts, and I asked them to give me money so that I can follow 5 cultural dance groups across Long Island and witness their first big performance post-COVID.
Oh, nice.
So I managed to get 5 groups, and one of them was a group called Layla's Dance and Drum. Young ladies learning West African dance, and they weren't just learning West African dance, they were learning about West African, what it's like to have African heritage, and just to build that connection. So a lot of parents had the kids in there, not necessarily because they wanted them to learn African dance, but because they wanted their kids to have a deeper connection with African history and culture. So I followed them, and little did I know that their first big performance out of COVID was the halftime show for the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, what? So I got to see the Harlem Globetrotters.
Great, though.
Oh my God, I was in heaven because I grew up with those guys. So there was a lot of levels of there was a lot going on there in that story. It took me 10 months to shoot. 10 months between planning and interviews and following them and rehearsals and finally and then editing and all that stuff. It was 10 months from end to end. But it got me an Emmy.
Congratulations. That's great. That's the one thing with your career. It's taken you to many different places, gotten you into behind the scenes with several people and some exciting things. I mean, you've gotten us to a lot of places too.
we have gotten into some weird places, haven't we?
Even at in Coney Island on what is that? What is the roller coaster?
Oh! Now you passed the Cyclone. The Cyclone,
which I had never been on. So
recently, yes. I think people got stuck in there for hours, didn't they?
Well, we didn't. So it actually is a pretty scary roller coaster, though, and I am a roller coaster fan. So. Another thing I wanted to mention is the Broadway, the plays, the theater, that is something that you have a website also that you've built just based on that focus. Do you want to just talk about that?
Sure. So on Verizon, I covered all things Long Island, all things that made Long Island great. But the one set of stories that really it got more attention than the others were my backstage interviews with Broadway actors. And then when Verizon decided to close down the channel and stop competing against News 12, that was after 10 years, you have to be introspective about what do I do next. So there's the old philosophy that you figure out what you do well and you do more of it. And whatever you don't do well, you don't do it or do less of it. So out of the shows that I was producing for Verizon, or the segments I was producing, the Broadway in Maine series was above and beyond the best received. So I decided to then, take my money and focus on that. So now I built a website called BroadwayInMaine.com, and it focuses on regional theater across the United States and its economic impact on main streets. So it's not just about entertainment, because if you go to any small city in the United States that has a theater, that theater is the backbone of that main street. You're taking 300, sometimes even 500 people in all of them coming together, and there's almost no downtown that can support that many people. The bars can't take in 500 people. The restaurants cannot feed 500 people, all at once. So it just becomes an economic engine for these downtowns. And I've seen it through my reporting all across Long Island, and we are not unique. So I've interviewed in Boise, Idaho. I've called Houston. I've called Sacramento. I've called Middle America, and had interviews with these theaters that are impacting the community. So I'm fascinated by that because I'm an artist. The arts are not given as much importance. It's people love to see a show, but they don't realize what that show does and the money that that it brings to the local businesses and the downtowns. COVID proved that. The arts became infinitely important during COVID. So this is that. So I'm hoping to be able to take that Broadway Maine and really make it something unique, different from Broadway.com, Playbill.com. Those guys are great at what they do, but they are 100% entertainment based. And I would like to just twist it a little bit and include the community in there, the people that support it. Dinner and the show, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's every theater does that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. So definitely. What do you, I guess at this point, what kind of support or what do you need or what are you looking for to help expand that?
What? It's almost a chicken or the egg situation with that. Look, like anything else, you need money to be able to get the word out. But if the word gets out and people visit the site, then it starts generating revenue. So realistically, it'll be nice if people go visit, check out some of the stories, share the stories with friends. And, that'll break that cycle of that chicken and the egg. And, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But there's a lot. There's so much that can be done, as you go around and physically visit some of these theaters. You can find out what the actors do when they're not on stage. What are the local attractions. Go feature some of the restaurants and even places to relax nearby. There's really a lot. I see tons of potential in that concept, and I hope to spend the next few years making it happen.
It's exciting. It definitely is exciting. I mean, like I said, I love my experiences going to the Engelman Theater, Northport, Patchogue, Bellport. There's just such a charm to just being in those theaters because there's history, and then it's being in those downtown areas, and it's just experiencing that whole downtown city feel. And then obviously the performances, they've been terrific. So it's exciting.
Well, I wanted to add, and also for anyone out there who is an artist, I went to college with a young lady whose parents refused to pay for her education because she wanted to be an artist. And she's not alone. So, and there are parents that'll discourage you or may not be as supportive. But the truth is that parents, they need to know that the arts really they generate there's their careers and very lucrative careers that can be had in the arts. But also you have to work at something that you're passionate about. And what does it matter if you're making a lot of money at a job that you hate? I'd much rather live comfortably at a job that I love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's exciting. So we will visit that website. Okay. So your family is from the Dominican Republic.
And I am from the Dominican Republic. born and raised.
So, okay. So, well, let's start. Where's the Dominican Republic? Because some people don't know. Let's start there.
Yeah, that always surprises me. Because I have to tell people it's next to Cuba. And then people go, oh, okay.
But people also don't know that there's kind of two parts of the island.
Yes. And for anyone that was paying attention in this last political cycle, we share an island with Haiti. Yeah, and that stuff was horrible. That was being said. But we are in the Caribbean. So for reference, Puerto Rico is just a few miles away from the Dominican Republic. And for those that know where Cuba is at, we're in between Cuba and Puerto Rico. Look for the big island in between Cuba and Puerto Rico.
Exactly.
And that's La Isla de Hispaniola, divided into two. One side is Haiti, 1/3 is Haiti. The other 2/3 is Dominican Republic.
Excellent. So I have this passion for chocolate. And
welcome to the club.
I've talked about, mine goes beyond just going to buy a chocolate bar in the store. Mine is I have to travel and learn about how it's grown, and I have to take these exotic trips to Belize and all, Grenada and all these places. And I've talked about this obsession for many years with you. And then one day you happened to mention, oh, my family owns a cacao farm in the Dominican Republic. And I just was like, what?
It never occurred to me. It did not occur to me to bring it up to you.
I've been traveling all these places, and in your family's backyard is this like 100-year-old organic cacao farm.
Yeah.
And I just like looked at you with a blank stare, like, hello. It was the funniest thing. So we decided...
this is what relationships are based on, just taking each other for granted.
Yeah. So we decided, I don't even know how we decided this, but we somehow developed this trip that evolved into this, so that was, just like, oh, we're going to go see this farm. But then it evolved into several different video recordings throughout the island. And my sister came, my daughter Anna, who was probably 11 or 12, came. Your wife, Sandy, who was how many months pregnant?
Yeah, we were trying to keep it secret, but it wasn't much of a secret. Yeah, she was halfway done.
She was pregnant.
Yeah.
And your son, Max.
Yeah.
So we all went to the Dominican Republic, and it was one of the best trips of my life. And I know, Anna and I spoke about that trip on our podcast as well. And my sister also, it was, and one of the main reasons it was so impactful was we really were immersed in the culture. You took us to your family's farm and your family's homes, and then we, you taught us the history. And when you experience a destination like that, it was amazing. So part of it was obviously chocolate related, and we'll talk about that. And some of it wasn't. We were at the baseball stadium.
Hey, Dominicans know how to play baseball. And that was Bartolo Colon, who used to pitch for the Angels and the Mets, and he built the $5 million stadium right in where I grew up, so that he can. It's an academy. So just to produce more baseball players.
Right. And we at some type of recruiting?
Yeah.
What was happening there?
There was like a dozen scouts there looking at some young talent. And the kids were taking batting practice, and they were, catching fly balls. And I remember this one kid that kept pounding the ball, hitting it up against the outfield fence, sometimes over the outfield fence. And then somebody says in Spanish, "Too bad he's only 12. Oh. I was like, what? That kid is 12? He's like, well. So, they're looking at them that young. And that kid he was a monster. He was a monster. But that was it. So Bartolo Colon decided to build this academy out there. And baseball is the sport. If you're Dominican, you're supposed to play baseball. I don't even know how we have a soccer team. I can't believe that there's 11 people in the Dominican Republic that know how to play soccer. But we also have a soccer team. Unbelievable that we do.
It was a really nice stadium. It was, it was really cool. Now, we flew in to, we stayed, the first city we stayed in, I can't remember.
Santiago, right in the heart.
And that's not people don't traditionally.
No.
That was like the power of this trip. It's like we went to places that people traditionally don't go to in the Dominican Republic. They usually go to the south side, which is. The south side is, so you have the capital, which is Santo Domingo. Okay.
So that's where your average tourist lands.
Okay.
Now, 90% of all tourists, they land in Punta Cana.
Yes.
And then, of course, I was born in Puerto Plata, which is the north. But my mother lives in the heart of the Dominican Republic, which is Santiago. And that is the second largest city. And it's also the most fertile land. So that is El Cibao is where there's all the agriculture essentially is happening, or the majority of the agriculture is happening on there. And my mom also lives only 10, 15 minutes away from the airport. So that was a good airport.
Yes. Yes.
And we had passion fruit waiting for us.
Yes.
Because she has passion fruit in her backyard. She has avocado tree, in her backyard.
Yeah. hungry.
So the reason why I had to make that trip, or it was essential, I didn't have to, but it was essential, is because I was doing a story about how the Dominican Republic gave promised 1,000 visas to save Jews from Nazis in 1938.
I forgot about.
So that was the reason that I was I told you that I was going to the Dominican Republic,
Yes, I forgot
and
about
then it evolved into this other trip.
And you did an interview.
Yes.
Yes, I wasn't present for that interview, but you did an interview with they were on the north side, weren't they?
In Sosua. So I had to go to Sosua. Sosua was there's a Jewish enclave there. So when Trujillo, who was a dictator at the time, promised 1,000 visas for Jews that were being persecuted by Hitler, they came over, not 1,000. They never got to 1,000. Eventually, they extended it to 100,000. It was 100,000. But Hitler closed the border. He was like, you know what? I have other plans here. They're not leaving. They're leaving in another way. So, but these Jews from Germany that were being persecuted made it. They were given a certain amount of land in Sosua.
Oh, wow.
And they were, they were welcomed. And to this day, if you go to Sosua, you'll see Jewish culture there. They have a mosque, and there's a Jewish museum, Museo Judío, which is where I went.
Okay.
And the current person that's running it was there when he was 6 years old. So he was the person that I interviewed. So he was there, and he went away, but he came back and decided to keep the museum going.
Wow. Wow. I don't know that's amazing. I didn't, know what, for some reason I didn't remember that piece.
Well, you weren't there, that was, it wasn't the fun part. And I didn't,
That's a significant story. That is a significant story. Okay. So, why don't we talk a little bit about your family and the history of chocolate and cacao and the farm and how it got started?
Yeah.
So.
Well, how it got started, I don't know. This land has been in my family. It just gets passed on. That's the one bit of wealth that my family has in the Dominican Republic. And generally, when you grow up in the country, that's essentially probably the only wealth that you can have, is that you own a patch of land. But so my grandfather owned quite a bit of land. He had 5 kids. And when he passed, he divided it into 5.
Where was this on the island specifically?
So this is Puerto Plata, which is a province, Puerto Plata, but it's right on the border of Santiago and Puerto Plata. So I was born in the southern part of Puerto Plata, but closer to Santiago. So I guess so when you go, there's a tunnel. When you're leaving from the Dominican, from Santiago, you go through a tunnel that, if you ask any Dominican about the tunnel to Puerto Plata, they know it because it used to be a railroad tunnel. When you come out, right there is where we're at. And it's a mountainous region. Okay. So Puerto Plata, as you get closer to the shore, it's the beaches and all that stuff is sea level, but it's mountainous where we're at. So there are very few crops that can be grown in a mountainous region. Avocado is one of them. Coffee.
And it's not the avocados we usually see.
Is that Haas?
Yes, it's not what we're seeing in our grocery stores here.
No, these are big ones, and Dominicans, the bigger the better, But they're more watery. The reason why Haas is so popular is because they're dense, they're concentrated. You can make good guacamole. You can't make guacamole with the avocados we grow. There's too much water in them.
How do
but
you
they're
use
huge.
Them, then?
You slice them and put them into a salad.
Does it taste similar to? So it's different.
No, they're more watery.
Okay.
Just imagine, let's say both avocados have the same amount of flavor, but one of them is concentrated, the other one is not.
Okay.
But avocados, and you got to have avocados with everything. Avocados go with everything. So we, avocados grow well in mountainous regions. Coffee, of course, cacao, and we used to do sugarcane. and
Bananas,
then root
plantains,
vegetables,
I thought I remember
bananas.
seeing, yeah, I saw a lot of bananas.
But bananas are functional in a way,
Okay.
like to help the
Yes.
other crops.
Okay, yes.
But yes, bananas, plantains,
Mangoes.
plenty of mangoes. But the mangoes are not like a business.
Okay.
So, but we grow. There's everything on that land. There's everything. Eventually, what my parents did, my father and his brother just purchased the land from all their siblings, and what used to be my grandfather's, they just brought it back together. So they own my grandfather's land, and there's everything on there. But over the years, when I was little, they stopped doing coffee because coffee just was too cheap. It wasn't not cheap. It was it wasn't cost effective because you had Brazil, and then when Vietnam came online producing coffee, it wasn't worth it. So then you got to figure out what's making your money. But cacao was always. I mean, I remember going up there with the donkey and filling up burlap baskets with cacao, helping my cousins out. You crack them open. You take the pulp and the seeds on the inside. You put them in the burlap basket and you throw the shells on the floor and just let the shells return to the earth.
Yep.
So that's always been that way for me. But so we stopped doing the coffee, focused on cacao. Avocados really started coming in, and we now grow a hybrid avocado, which is somewhere between a Hass and a Dominican avocado.
Okay.
So it's smaller, it's a little bit more condensed. So literally, when you see it, you can see where it's in between if you know both. And that one sells a little bit better in the United States. But Dominicans still love their big avocados that look like a cantaloupe.
So I just want to create this setting here because I think people traditionally in America, farms are rows, monocrops. They're not, in the Dominican, you're walking in this rainforest
Yes.
of stuff you can eat. It's like it everything is feeding off of each other. Like you just said, the bananas serve a purpose, not just to eat or to grow for, production purposes and selling. They're growing to help with. You want to explain that?
Yeah. So just to be sure, not every farm in the Dominican Republic operates this way. There are farms that you go out, especially the ones that are growing bananas and plantains for as far as the eye can see.
Right.
There's rows and rows. But it's just the way on both sides of my family.
This is more permaculture. This is more, yes, which is something I believe in. So, it's magnificent to see and experience and be in because you feel everything is alive around you and is helping each other and supporting each other. So go ahead.
Yeah. So for example, when you're growing coffee at the beginning, they learned this with coffee, but it applies also to cacao. When you have the small plant, the cacao plant, it can't get too much sun. So it needs shade in order to thrive. So what you do is that around the cacao, you plant banana trees. And, meanwhile, you're getting your bananas, but it provides plenty of shade. And once the cacao plants they're big enough to deal with the level of sun that Caribbean sun, then you clear the banana plants. But the banana plants are necessary. Otherwise, you just never get you won't get a mature cacao plant tree.
Wow. So how many acres do you guys have now?
I don't know. It's a lot. I keep asking, but I keep asking, but when we walked and we only saw a piece of it, and then we were essentially, it was a hike. It wasn't even a walk.
And the kids were on a donkey.
Right.
So
and the donkeys are the best workers. So you could get a mule, but there's nothing like a donkey. A horse is not good. A donkey will climb anywhere, and they it just the amount of weight that they can carry is incredible. So we don't have a 4x4 or quad. It wouldn't work in that area. You can't go up there with a quad. We would have to clear a path. But a donkey, you just go over roots and deep foliage.
And then they carry the sacks back out, because those sacks are filled with like
the pulp.
Liquidy pulp. Yeah. So then that could get really heavy. So so you started growing cacao over the years. Now, obviously there's different things you can do with that. So what is the operation that exists now? You basically, you guys do not ferment and dry at the farm.
No, not at all.
What are you doing?
So we don't produce enough cacao by ourselves in order to be able to independently just sell, dry it, process it. We don't have the capacity. So there is a cooperative in the area. So where all the local farmers came together, and they sell the pulp to the processing plant that's on the main road that comes down from the tunnel. There's only one road. So if they tell you the road is like, that's it. It's not like Route 75 or whatever it is. It's just that one road. So, but they're right there on the main road. And what we do is all the local producers sell their raw crops, the pulp, to them, and they process it. And then in that processing plant is dried.
Well, it's fermented first.
Yes.
And then it's dried usually.
Yes,
from what I know.
But not roasted.
Yes. No, that usually happens when it gets to the person who's actually making the chocolate.
So the Rainforest Cafe, the Rainforest Alliance,
I think so,
are the biggest client.
Yep.
So the bulk of what we sell ends up in Europe. Some of it ends up locally, but anybody who's doing stuff locally, and we went to where on my mother's side in another mountainous area where there's a business that was created by women
yes,
who are producing chocolate. All of that chocolate is local chocolate, locally fermented, grown. It's completely vertical, right there, vertically integrated. But they're producing in smaller quantities.
Right.
The Rainforest Alliance is not calling on them. So that's generally it. We don't crack them anymore. Actually, no, we actually do. We go up, we crack them, and we put it out in sacks on the road and sell it to them.
Yep. Yeah.
So we still have to go out with the donkey. We still got to go fill up the burlap baskets, and we have to hire those guys. But a big thing about it is that they test every batch to make sure there's no chemicals, that we haven't been using chemicals in the growth process. So, when you have cacao, you have a lot of mice.
Okay.
They love themselves some cacao, mice, you and mice. So we're like, well, we can't put any poison out there. So my uncle and my dad, they just got a few snakes.
Okay.
So I didn't want to tell you that.
That's okay. I'm glad you didn't. Like I didn't tell my sister. Now she's gonna know. Sorry, Sue.
Yeah. So they scatter snakes through their property in order to control the rodent population.
Okay. Well, hey, that's
And we are certified organic, which I forgot to tell you also.
That's all good.
Yeah.
So your uncle, who runs it now? Like, who runs the operation?
So you met with my cousins.
Your cousin.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my cousins over there, they run the operation. So there's this, like you figure out what the revenue stream is. He has a day job. This stuff is it's almost a labor of love, because we're not generating enough money that you could just do that 100% of the time. So my cousin does have a job at one of these it's like a factory outlet. They produce clothing that end up at Macy's, in a factory. But when he's not in there, he's in the fields. And he's overseeing it, making sure that, hey, that area needs to be cleared. And then, we hire out people accordingly, but he's managing it. His name is Andres.
Did you ever consider making chocolate, or actually going through to an end product stage with your product?
It just you're not making enough. We're not growing enough,
right,
to be able to make enough.
Do you know how much you produce a season?
I can get those numbers, but the problem is that we are definitely, because we're not using any enhancements. No, we're not juicing here. For baseball talk, it all depends. Like right now we're having a tough time because there's flooding everywhere. It's just rain, torrential rain. And that's obviously not good. And then you go through years of drought, and that's not good. So it's tough.
Were you impacted by any of the recent storms? I know some of the hurricanes went through some of these islands. And I know there are some people, like a friend of mine in Grenada, she lost a bunch of trees, of old cacao trees from some of these storms.
Well, the last this batch of storms didn't hit the Dominican Republic directly enough. So what you're getting are outer bands of the storm. You're getting heavy rains, but you're not getting a direct hit like Hurricane Maria or something like that, Irma and Maria. So that was the closest that we got to a direct hit was 2017, but Puerto Rico got the brunt of that. The problem is just the inconsistency in weather.
Right. Climate change.
So, but we are able to produce some chocolate and get a few bars, and I've even given you this raw version that we produce that I love. It looks like it's almost the size of a cucumber, but it's just a lump of cacao.
Yeah. Tyler was asking me what that was in my refrigerator.
Yeah.
So what do you make out of that? Explain that, because this is something unique.
Oh, I love it. My grandma, so it's cacao. They put a little bit of sugar in it. There's some cinnamon, some spices in there. And you can buy it either with sugar or without sugar. So the one that I got you was unsweetened. And you grate it.
Yep.
You grate it, and you put it into warm milk, and that's it. I mean, you could do other stuff with it, but the only thing I do is grate it, put it into warm milk, and I get my bread and I dunk the bread in there, and that's breakfast.
So it's more of a very traditional hot chocolate.
And the smell. I mean, it just takes me. Remember the scene in Ratatouille, where the guy is taken back to his youth. Man, you want to do that to me? But
that's it.
Get some warm milk and grate some of that chocolate in, and I'm done. I turn into that guy from Ratatouille.
One other thing I definitely remember from the trip was eating with your cousin's family.
Yes.
You want to just describe some of the food that is traditional?
Well, we buy very little.
Yeah. That's
because it's amazing. So we definitely don't buy any chickens. So when dinner's ready, it's like, hey, chicken.
We didn't see any of that.
But we have yuca, which is what's
like a potato? Is that more like potato? Isn't it more of a potato?
It looks like a potato, but it's a root vegetable. Cassava
has to be cooked.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That isn't that like poisonous raw? I thought that was poisonous raw.
I'm sure it gives you a bad stomach ache. I don't think it's poisonous.
But I know. Yeah, I thought that it has like a potato consistency.
Yes. So we have plantains, we have bananas, we have other things called rulos, which is somewhere in between. It looks like it's fat like a plantain, but small like a banana. Somewhere in between. That's actually what my family prefers to eat. And then there's all this dozens of root vegetables. We have oranges. So for if we need vinegar, we have vinegar oranges, which I have one for you. And you
what is that though? When you say a vinegar orange,
it's an orange that you really shouldn't. If you try to eat it, it's a bad eat because
so basically it doesn't taste like a sweet orange.
No,
it tastes
no,
like vinegar.
it tastes like vinegar. So we use it to season meat.
So what do? You actually juice it, or you
just
slice it and you
squeeze it out, just like orange juice, except that you don't drink that cup of orange juice.
Yeah.
So in terms of vinegar,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it orange?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's orange. It looks like orange juice, except that it's very vinegary.
And does it grow on a similar tree as so you better know what variety of orange you're growing.
Oh, you'll see it. You'll see it because it has a rough texture on the outside. So that would be, we buy salt and when visitors come, only when visitors come, every now and then we'll buy beef. So that it's a special event if you're eating beef at my family's house, it's something special. So usually when I'm there, I'm eating beef, but the kids eat chicken, which I feel bad. So I give them, I'm like, come on, man, here. So I always make sure that I give my cousins a little bit extra cash because I'm like, come on, guys, I can't be the only one eating steak here. Just get steak for the whole family. So that's how it is. And then and we have two stoves. There's the gas stove with the tank on it, so you can operate your stove, your range, but you got to buy gas. So then there's the other old school, centuries old idea of just having the 3 stones, just the wood burning stove, and whenever possible. And if it makes sense, like to make a pot of rice, you just put it on that. So try not to use the gas that much. And we still have the outhouse.
Yeah, it was very rustic. We had our experience on the cacao farm and the donkey and your cousin had the machete and he was opening up the cacao pods. And then we also had the downpour and the rain. It was an amazing experience. And then we did visit the women who had the co-op.
Relatives of mine.
Turned out. I didn't even realize they were relatives. That was really cool though. I mean, they actually made the chocolate. Like they were sourcing it locally and making it. I have them actually on my website, and I did a blog post on them with their names. Are they still doing that?
Yeah. What's weird? I feel weird when I go down there because I don't consider my family the type of family that gets helped by the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps is always some organization helping some poor society, and then I go there and I'm like, hey,
yes, that gentleman was there.
So that was a program put together by the Peace Corps. And even Mormons go down there and help out, and it's just so weird because I just never think that my family is that family.
But at the same time, though, that person, it was a young man who was there, and in speaking to him, he was putting more business discipline around the structure of their business and kind of how to and I thought, what a great help. I mean, people here hire consultants to do that. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, but what it was is that idea would have never happened if it was up to the women of that village, of my village there. It wouldn't have happened if it was up to them. They would have just stayed in their traditional roles, dependent on the men, just 1800s life of a woman. But it takes an outsider.
Right.
Like someone from the Peace Corps to come in and see what's around and organize these ladies, and then they felt empowered, and then you could see the twinkle in their eyes. You could see how proud they were to be able to sell this stuff.
Yes, that was. I mean, you guys were speaking Spanish, and I couldn't keep up, but just the energy I felt being there, and just seeing. Yeah, they were energized by this whole process and what they created.
Yeah. And a big problem is something that's in that town. So my grandfather passed away. He had 7 kids. My grandmother had 11. So he had 7 kids. So he split his land, and and the majority of them don't want it. They're like, what am I going to do with this? First of all, I live in New York, so now I got, it doesn't produce enough. It's just, and then it's your dad's land, it's your family's land, so you don't want to sell it. You feel bad. It's kind of like regifting. So, and this happens over and over again in the culture where, the elders lived off the land. Now the kids are somewhere, in a different state, and they just don't want anything to do with the land. So we have a handful of people, like, I'm really interested in continuing what my father's doing, even though it's not a profitable thing, but I want to continue doing it. And on my mother's side, we have a cousin who's been gobbling up, consolidating those 7 aunts and uncles and trying to do the same thing, because otherwise you just got to sell it to the neighbor.
Right.
And it's and it's a problem. So when these ladies are given this opportunity to actually do to be able to be financially independent and do something with the land that the kids are all giving up, they were also enthused, because they're like, oh my God, finally we're going to be able to do something with this land, and we don't have to let it go. And letting it go when that it's been in your family for generations, it's tough. My mom refuses to let go of her patch of land, and she does nothing with it, right. Which is she does nothing with it. She'll send somebody to clean it, but she doesn't want to let it go.
Right. Just talking about profitability, though, Anna, when we did the podcast, she did an economics project on the price of cacao, like, shot up recently and is still extremely high, and especially organic cacao. So I feel like, re-looking at that model might be an opportunity in the future. I mean, there are companies, bean to bar makers that are looking to source, especially in the Dominican Republic. We have access to the Dominican Republic here, especially. So I don't know. That might be an opportunity to relook at that model in the future.
Well, it's a matter of how much you're producing.
Yep.
So,
and the quality of what you're producing.
Well,
some of these bean to bar makers, quality has become, this is huge. It's a huge market now that's definitely taken shape in the last several years. And, there might be an opportunity.
Well, if it's good enough for the Rainforest Alliance, right, it's good enough for me. No, so we solve the quality issue. It's the where the critical mass.
Yep.
How do you produce enough? And through the partnerships. But what I see in my especially on my mother's side is sort of like a place to experiment. You need a test kitchen. So I that's what the discussion I've been having with my mother about seeing, like, what happens if we do this over here? Yep. What happens if we do that, and just use that patch of land as a test kitchen, and and then take it over to my dad's land, which is much bigger, right. And then implement it. So it's at least and if nothing else, you get some real interesting cacao,
which I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Excellent. So were there any other interviews that you did from that trip?
Well, yeah. So we focused on the Dominicans being instrumental in saving Jews.
Yep.
We did interviews documenting the process of how cacao is made from seed to bar. We interviewed Bartolo Colon.
Yep.
And when we stayed in a sustainable hotel.
And I cannot remember the name of it.
Yeah.
Echo something.
Yeah.
I have to look that up. I'll put it in.
Where they had no air conditioning. We could keep the windows open. The bar had they were growing all the herbs that were used in the mixtures. That lots of it.
They had a farm also they were sourcing from. I think actually I know me.
I went. We all went.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember. And they were doing aqua. They were using. the one we went to, they were using fish too.
Yeah. Tilapia. They were
and,
doing they had the tilapias in there.
And they also obviously was right on the ocean, and they were doing all the kite surfing.
It's Cabarete. Cabarete is like the
Yes.
kite surfing capital of the world.
Yes.
It's, oh my God, it's so beautiful there.
Yes.
My sister lives there now.
It is.
Yes.
It was beautiful. It was. It was absolutely beautiful. So yes, that hotel definitely aligned with our trip.
Yeah. So that was it. So we stayed in a sustainable hotel, right? We went to a sustainable farm, and we met some people that saved lots of Jews. Now, I mean, who can say that?
It was an amazing trip. We had a lot of fun, and we ate some really good food and met some amazing people. So at least we met some amazing people. So yeah. Any have you been back?
I haven't been back. It's things got a little complicated once the baby was born, and then Verizon closed down the channel. So then, so you're like, okay, trying to figure things out. And then, wow, the years go by so fast.
I know. Well, we have to go back then.
Yeah. We definitely. Well, my sister decided to pick up and leave the United States, and she's been working over there.
That's right. She works for a school. Wait. Yes.
Yeah, so she was working with a school that was helping Dominican youth become college bound in the United States.
Yes, Anna spoke to her.
Yeah. So she's doing her part to try to give back.
That's great.
Even though she wasn't born there, she just we Dominicans travel a lot. We keep that bond. We go back a lot. Like you go right now to Kennedy Airport, and there's an airplane leaving right now, or within the next hour. And between Kennedy and Newark, you could possibly have 13 to 14 opportunities in any 24-hour period to go to the Dominican Republic.
Excellent.
It's insane how much travel there is to the Dominican Republic.
It's also close. It's nice and close, so you're not far from home.
3.5 hour flight.
Yes, that is terrific. Same time zone, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely. So just when you reflect back on all of these, because you've done a tremendous amount of interviewing and visiting, when you reflect back, what was one or two of the most pivotal interviews you've done with people?
Now you're talking about me here on Long Island.
Or in general, because I know you've traveled. Weren't you in Puerto Rico after the hurricane there? So you've not just been focused on Long Island. Yeah. You've expanded that focus throughout the years, and different opportunities. When you've personally traveled, you've turned it into an opportunity to interview people. Oh, with the dog sledding.
Oh my God, that was so cool.
I think I connected you with them up in Canada.
Yeah.
That was probably
La Ferme 5 Étoiles. Oh my God. But listen, if we keep talking, we're going to make this a 7-hour interview.
What is one of your most favorite videos, interviews that you did that kind of stuck with you as something that you take, forward? So
I'll give you two answers. The first one is very short. My favorite person of all time that I turned into a little fanboy interviewing.
I'm surprised. You're usually not like that.
I'm not. I'm so cool.
No one actually usually gets to you like that.
Buzz Aldrin.
Really?
Come on. Buzz Aldrin, the second man to set foot on the moon. The inspiration of Buzz Lightyear.
So what?
Come on, it was Buzz Aldrin. That was it. That was it. Because I couldn't. I was like, hi, Buzz. So he was over here on Long Island promoting his book.
Wow.
And it was at the book review.
Okay.
And he only, his publicity person only allowed one interview.
And it was you?
And it was me.
Congratulations.
I'm like,
wow.
So either News 12 or ABC or NBC or CBS were not interested in interviewing Buzz Aldrin, or I beat them out for the interview. But so that was great, but it was Buzz. Come on,
And where
man.
can people find that interview? I mean, I'll link to it.
Oh yeah, mylitv.com.
Okay. I'm going to link to it.
Yeah,
in the
when he was promoting his
notes.
book, and then the most profound interview was really when in 2020, just before COVID, Puerto Rico went through a series of earthquakes. Like earthquakes that just wouldn't stop. It started in December 2019, and it just kept coming and coming, and people were like, "Oh, it's aftershocks." So there were more earthquakes, and schools were being split open. The walls. The kids couldn't go to class, so they started figuring out how to continue to educate the kids in a park. So they, so they would be out in the middle of like the municipal park with classrooms, and we went to houses where, people were sleeping in their driveway on a tent because it was unsafe. They didn't know if it was going to be another tremor in the middle of the night. I came out of that one. I'm telling you, I've never had PTSD. I was traumatized.
Really?
Yeah. So the purpose for me being down there, I was sent down there by the Center for Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College because they wanted people to donate directly to the nonprofits that had boots on the ground. They didn't want you to send money to an umbrella organization that was going to keep 10 to 15% of the money and then eventually give the money to the government or an agency. They wanted it to. So I was there to produce a video that was then presented to the mayor's office. And in the middle of my presentation, I started crying. I mean, right now, I'm like, it really gets me. I'm telling you, it was nuts. And I still can't get through it.
Yeah. Now you're making me cry.
No, I still can't get through it because it was amazing. I mean, the resilience of these people. Living in the driveway of your house. And then when you're up in the mountains, you already went through a period after Hurricane Maria, which was in 2017, where you didn't have electricity for some people for 10 months. Yeah. And they were still recovering from that because, to rebuild the infrastructure. Yep. And then you get hit with, it was 30 to 40 days of earthquakes. Wow. Who ever heard of that? I mean, earthquake is like, one and done. So anyway, that was the one that to this day. Yeah.
I can imagine why. Wow. So you have had and still have and just an amazing career, and you know what's what more amazing about it is you've created all of these opportunities. You are one of the most innovative, creative people that I know in my lifetime so far. I'm enthralled by everything you do and everyone you connect with, and I am so grateful to be along for the ride.
The secret for me is you got to ask.
Yeah.
Right? Worst you could do is say no. I asked you to, to come along, and you could have said no. And I do the same with everyone else. I mean, you can't be afraid to ask. So I've been very fortunate that people, I don't know, I must have one of those faces that it's a trustworthy phrase. I've had people just take the craziest risks on my asks, and I appreciate it. It feels good to be entrusted with people's stories. It's not every day that you just want to open up, and you don't want to open up to everyone. So it's special when somebody shares a moment with you, and I value it. So, maybe it comes across. So thank you for the compliment.
And your name doesn't hurt either, Waldo. I just love it.
Hey, it was a curse, and now I use it.
Yes,
use it to my benefit. That's another conversation for another day about growing up, Waldo.
Separate podcast. Well, thank you for joining me today, Waldo.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And it's my pleasure. All right, thank you. I hope our AgriTourist podcast prompts you to think more about where your food comes from. Whether it be your vegetables, fruits, meats, and even those sweet treats. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with someone you think may truly benefit from or be inspired by it. Visit us at agra-tourist.com. Until next time. As we are learning from many of our farmers and entrepreneurs, strong connections help propel our visions. Through my interview with Lisa Chase from the University of Vermont Extension and Vermont Tourism Research Center, I was connected to an exciting and new organization called the Global Agritourism Network, or GAN for short. The Global Network is made up of agritourism stakeholders from around the world. They include farmers and ranchers, researchers, educators, community planners, policymakers, agricultural service providers, and tour operators, among others. It is currently free to join, so if you have any interest in agritourism, check them out at agritourism.eurac.edu/GAN, or just Google Global Agritourism Network. The link will be in our show notes as well. You never know, this global network may help you take your agritourism vision to the next level.